Hi everyone, my name is Jorge Perdomo. I have decided to create a series of videos to share my understanding and my thinking around leadership. In reality, I am going to be writing a book. Unlike many authors who write the book and then talk about the book, I have decided to do the opposite, which is to talk about the book first and then write it. The ideas that I have in my mind, I want to share with everyone. And my hope that by me sharing my ideas and my thinking can inspire you to become a better leader. The title of the book that I'm thinking about will be The Music of Leadership. And you will get to understand a little bit more about why I say the music of leadership. But the book will have two parts. The first part will begin with that understanding of this thinking about the music of leadership. And the other one is unpacking each one of those components that I'm going to describe. In the music of leadership, for anyone who knows music, I'm relating it to the chromatic scale. Many of us who are musicians, if you ever play the piano, you would know that in every instrument that you play, there is a chromatic scale. And the chromatic scale has 12 tones. So as a result, I'm going to share with you 12 ideas that I hope you can connect with this understanding of leadership. The first one, idea number one, we human beings, we are both. We're sound and we're silence. And as I share with you, I want you to think about that when I'm saying, what do I mean by that we're sound and we're silence? Of course, you do understand that when we communicate with people, we emit a sound. And that sound can be noise or can be music. So there are audible sounds and there are inaudible sounds, sounds that we cannot hear, but it doesn't mean that the sounds are not there. So we are constantly making sound, and so the number one of our chromatic scale is we are both sound and silence. The number two idea that I want you to know is that we, all of us, we are an instrument. And like an instrument, we have a unique body. All of our instruments are different. Just like an instrument, we require maintenance. We have to repair our instrument. And of course, as we connected to the idea of music and sound and leadership, as instruments, we produce a sound. Have in mind that because we're all a unique instrument, we have the capacity to emit unique sounds, and with these sounds, we can communicate. We communicate our ideas, we express ourselves, and so this allows us to be part of the music that we listen constantly, which is what I'm calling the music of leadership. The third concept that I want you to think and have in mind following this chromatic scale idea is energy in motion. So now we know we have an instrument, and for those of you who have played a woodwind instrument or a brass instrument, for those instruments it requires breathing, it requires air, it requires us to breathe, right? And so you can see now how I'm connecting it. You may say, well, if you're playing the piano, if you're playing percussion, you don't need to breathe into the instrument, but what you do know is that when you're playing an instrument, you cannot play it unless you're breathing. And so I want you to keep in mind this idea that as we breathe, right, we create energy. And that way, as every time we are breathing in and out, we have an opportunity to create. And what we create, those sounds that we create, it could be melodious sound, there could be beautiful sound, there could be dissonant sound, there could be what we call noise. There could be that sound that is annoyance. So thinking and reflecting of our nature, our body, who we are, all of that can be connected to this idea of energy. And so we put it together, you see that number one, we are already sound, we are silence. You see as number two, we see ourselves as an instrument. and we have the capacity to play this instrument. And then for number 3, the energy component, where as we breathe, we have the capacity to renew, to recharge, but at the same time, produce and create the melodious sounds that we can make in our world. The 4th concept that I want you to keep in mind, like all of the instruments, right? I want you to think about your own texture. You see, in an orchestra, you have woodwinds, you have brass, you have percussion. So there are different shapes, there are different textures, there's a different range. Instruments have a high pitch, low pitch. They have the limitation. And another big concept that I want you to keep in mind as we consider this idea of music as leadership and the leadership of music is that we belong to a section. We belong to a specific area that defines us. And so you can think about if we are in a brass section, for example, we emit very powerful sounds. And if we're in the woodwind section, we can create melodious, less harsh sounds. And if you are in the string section, the sounds will be different. So you get the point. The whole point here is that we human beings, whatever we see in the world is a reflection of who we are, of that instrument that we are. But what is special to know about that is that we are unique. And we have a unique texture, and that texture gives us that variety, that richness of differences that allows us to make the music that we hear. The 5th concept that I want you to think about is that once we know all of this information, our job now is to know how to play the instrument. You also need to know that we, as an instrument, can also be played. So think about a conductor who kind of leads the music, tells you how loud, how soft, tells you how fast, how slow. So we're instruments, we can be played, but more important than anything is that we create our music, we can play our own music, we can create our own sounds, and we can bring our uniqueness into the world. Number 6 in the chromatic scale that I want you to keep in mind is that we all belong to an orchestra. We are all part of an orchestra. So I want you to visualize the world, the multiverse, the universe, the galaxy, the constellation. We are all part of an orchestra. And that is a very important understanding of this idea of the music of leadership. Which brings us to the number 7 point. Even more important, understanding that you can do 3 things once you have this realization. You can be part of the orchestra and play your great music in the orchestra. You can be the conductor. And as a conductor, you have to know the score, you have to know the music, you have to know what you want, and you have to be able to convey and be very clear about the outcome that you want to see as a conductor. Even more than that, you can also be the audience. So think of yourself, of all the possibilities that you have as a human being and as an instrument, that you can be in the orchestra and play great music and be part of the one producing the great music. You can be the conductor which actually can now lead the whole group and the different variations and the different combinations of groups into producing incredible music. And you can also be the audience, where you can be a listener. You can be listening, you can be enjoying, you can actually be, enjoying the whole performance, being in it and out of it. And that's one of the greatest things that I think this idea of the music of leadership is good to bring. The whole idea also that as the musician, you have a responsibility. There are certain things and certain rules that you have to follow so that the music comes out the way the conductor wants it. As a conductor, you have the choice to how the music is going to be played. And that in itself is a beautiful idea. And then as an audience, you have a very important part. And usually, probably the most important part of the audience is when once the music is played, the audience have this great responsibility to respond to actually clap, to acknowledge, to let the performers know how they felt about that performance. Which brings us to number 8. Um, this is a very important part of the chromatic scale. As you know, there is the major scale, the minor scales, and we're talking about the chromatic scales. One important understanding is in the Western Hemisphere, the music scale is divided into whole tone, half tone. In other areas of the world, they can have microtones and smaller tones like that. But in our hemisphere, we think of music in intervals of whole and half. And so when you think about the chromatic scale, it's made of half tones. And when we get to the 8th, usually if you think of the major scale, you have 7 notes plus the octave. And in the chromatic scale, now you have 12 tones. But I want you to think about number 8 as this idea that we have the capacity to make dissonance. We can create sounds that are irritating. We can create sounds that can actually clash, that can create this harmony. Also, we have the capacity to create harmonious sounds. We have the capacity to create melodious sounds, beautiful sounds. So I want you to think about this idea of our power to have choices to either make sounds that will harmonize or sounds that will clash or will create dissonance. Also, when the sound is not really organized, to us, that sound sounds like noise. Any random sound that does not make sense tends to sound like noise. But when we organize, when we use our creative power to organize the sound and make the sound make sense to others, that becomes what we call music. But as music is also in the ear of the listener, because there's noises that may also sound like music to some of us. The important thing is to know and be aware that we have that capacity to make noise and also to make great music. Number 9 of the chromatic scale. This, I believe, is also equally important to all the other parts. You need to have an understanding that we are rhythm and we're also vibration. And since you already know that we're sound and silence, you should also know that every time we move, every time we make any kind of movement or sound, we're making music, whether we're aware of not. So that can lead us to have a clarity of understanding of our actions, of what are we communicating every moment of our life. So having that understanding that any single moment that we move, any single moment that we make any kind of movement or sound, automatically we're making some kind of music. And this should bring us into awareness of our nature. We can go fast, we can do things fast, we can do things slow, we can pause. And so all of these kind of things that makes us think about our nature as an instrument, as sound, as music, as noise, as silence. All of these things create a greater sense of awareness, knowing that when we choose to do something very fast, it is a choice that we have. When we choose to slow down and take time and think about the things, how we want to do them, it's all have to do with the nature. But the biggest realization of number 9 is that it's happening all the time. This is whether you are doing it consciously or unconsciously. We're constantly either moving, we're vibrating, and we are constantly in motion. And that's part of our nature. Number 10. Number 10 brings us to this realization that now we are having this incredible awareness of everything that we are, the nature of who we are. And that brings us to the most important part, which is creation. We can create incredible music. The other part of that is that as we create, we can also enjoy other instruments, other people's creation. And so that's how we have been spending our life, sharing, learning from the same creations that we have all created. This incredible wealth of unlimited creativity that comes of understanding our nature. And our nature is that, to create, to harmonize, to do all these incredible things. So this is bringing us closer to that understanding of the music of leadership, because what comes next, as you may think as a musician, once you know of what you're capable of, part of probably one of the things that we want to do is to build a repertoire of incredible music. But the music that we choose is that the one that we feel this is what we like. So you can say, hey, I like jazz, I like classical music, I like romantic music. But in reality, what we're saying is, I am beginning to appreciate and to enjoy the nature of all of us, of what we can do. So this number 10 is like the biggest one, in a sense, like now we're moving to a different level, a different stage, which is the stage of building a repertoire, which leads us to number 11. So number 11 emphasizes this idea that we are the master of our instrument. We have to take care of this instrument. So as a musician, we know that an instrument may need repair, may need cleaning, may need tuning up. So you need to have that understanding that in order for your music to be beautiful, for your music to sound great, you have to take care of this instrument. And so you know that you're the master of that instrument. And you will know when an instrument is getting stuck. And so thinking about it, about your body, you know, just like blood is flowing through your veins, if blood stops running, it gets stuck in some place, it's not going to create good sounds in your body. It's going to create some problems that may interfere with the function of the whole instrument. So having an understanding that you're the master of the instrument, you're going to take care of that instrument. You're going to try to make sure that the instrument is the best playing condition ever. And so number 11 is understanding that I am the master of my instrument. I am the one who needs to take care of that instrument. And I'm the one who becomes aware when the instrument needs repair, when the instrument needs to be taken care of, shine, you know, and prepare so that the conditions, the optimal conditions for the instrument to play at its best are happening at all times. Which leads us to the last one in the chromatic scale. Number 12, then, is when I say, we are the music of leadership. And that puts it all together. Just like in the chromatic scale, you have played all the notes going up, half tones. You can also play all the notes coming down again, half tone. Or you can do anything you want. The chromatic scale of leadership, the chromatic scale of music, they are exactly aligned, which means the infinite possibilities of what can be done. The music of leadership tells you that we are everything. The multiverse, the universe, the galaxy, the constellations, the planets, the earth, the water, nature. The music of leadership is everything. And so we spend our time immersed in this world where we can actually enjoy, see, hear, listen, feel all of that is around us, be aware of it, and understand as this. So I'm hoping that with this video about the music of leadership, you get a little bit better of understanding of our nature. And with this kind of understanding, can help you probably make some better music, make some better sounds, and enjoy your work better. So I hope you liked this video. If you did like this video, hit the like button and subscribe.